Hey everyone, it's Rachel over at Moonlight Library. I'm here to talk about some books that I read in March. I'm not wearing my glasses again. I don't know. This is what I look like with my glasses on. This is what I look like with my glasses off. Okay, so I read 7 books this month, 6 of which are YA. That's the only stat I have for you. One of them is a little bit of a lie because I finished it after the clock hit midnight and rolled over to April 1st. But you know what? I hadn't gone to bed yet, so it still counts. It's still March. That's my mindset. So don't argue with me on this one unless you want to argue with me on this one. So let's start with the lie. This is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I just finished this one last night because it's right now April 1st. Wow. Oh my goodness, I cannot wait to read more of these, but I can't right now because I have to power read 8 more books by April 18th for my class. So there you go. I'm almost done with another book, so we're getting a little closer. But Cruel Prince follows Jude. She is a mortal girl, and she, as a child in like the first chapter basically, this guy comes to her house, kills her parents. Turns out her like half sister is a fairy. She's fae, and he's like a general. He's like high up in fairy, and so he takes the girls, and she has a twin sister who's obviously her full sister. I hope her twin sister's her full sister. That would be weird. Like, can that happen? I don't know. But anyways, he takes them back to fairy, and so she grows up as a mortal in fairyland, but not in like an indentured servant like most mortals there. She goes to school with like the kind of high-born fairies and stuff. And she is picked on by especially this guy, Prince Carden. But hello there, who are you? There's a little bit of a, I already knew this from the beginning because I bet everyone did going into this. It's an enemies to lovers. And it is good. Okay, so I hate a good amount of the characters in this. And I think you're supposed to hate these characters. But I love Jude. She's morally gray. She kind of does what she wants. She's a badass. She doesn't it's not like, oh, this is bad, so therefore I shouldn't do it. No, she's gonna friggin' do it. If she gotta do it, she's gonna do it. And I love that about her. I love that she's that character. And I want to read more of her. Also, as a kid, or like when I was a teenager, I used to love that one series by Holly Black, Tithe, Valiant, and Ironside. And Royben and Kay are in here from Tithe. And I was like so excited to see them. Back to my babies, you know? So I kind of want to reread that. I want to read the rest of this once I'm done with that class. And here we go. Yes. Maybe extremely long reading vlog. No, I don't have time for this. This is crazy. I give it a 5. So there's obviously no actual order to anything I'm doing here. No order. Get rid of it. So as April comes to us, so do flowers with Felix ever after, because they're flowers all over him. And this one is about Felix. He is a trans boy. He's figuring out his gender identity and who he is, and kind of all these questions because he doesn't feel comfortable yet in his own skin, and he comes to learn that that's okay. It's okay to not be sure yet. It's okay to figure it out. It's okay to figure it out for the rest of your fucking life, you know? But also, Felix is being targeted by a transphobic person who's made a gallery of his dead name and his old photos before his transition. And it's just horrifying. So he thinks he knows who it is, and he starts catfishing them but it's a story about love and acceptance and learning. It's wonderful, you know? Another kind of morally gray character, because he definitely does some things that are very questionable. Like, maybe that wasn't Kay to do. Especially when you didn't know. Like, you know, maybe... But I loved it. I think I gave it a 5. You know what? I don't know any of the ratings I gave these books. Here I am. Next up, I think that I always say next up, 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I'd only ever read Ninth House, which I gave a 3, but can't wait for the sequel. Like, it was a really good cliffhanger, but this is about 6 of Crows. It's a heist fantasy novel, and I did not think I would like this one. But everyone loves it, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it a try. I don't think I'll like it, but here we go. And guess what? I loved it. I had a great time. It took me way too long to read. That's why I only read 7 books this month. Fantasy heist novel. 6 rough and tumble characters come together to pull off the heist of a lifetime. It's politics, intrigues, scheming, suspense, all sorts of things. And magic. I had so much fun. The characters are so dynamic. All of them are fleshed out so perfectly. They have backstories, they have motives, like you understand each person, and each chapter is taken from each character's point of view other than one of them, which I found a little weird that they just excluded one from the crew of 6. Like, why did we never get his story? Yeah, someone tell me that, okay? Because I'm very interested to know why we never got his story. I gave it a 6. I love the characters. I love the story. I loved everything going on in this one. I had such a wonderful time. I feel like the beginning might have been a little slow for me, but then it really picked up pace once like things started rolling. Also, Kaz is like, what? You are... He's got everything. He knows. He knows what's going to happen at all moments, except, you know, sometimes. But he knows, and he's got everything planned out. I love it. I love it. The next book is The Overstory by Richard Powers. This is obviously the only non-YA book here. I feel like you can just tell by the cover that this isn't a young adult book. This is the book I read for my book club. It is a winner of Pulitzer Prize, nominated for Man Booker. It takes place kind of all over mainly this country, but also the world in a way, and virtually. What? So it's the story about trees told in the environment, but also about people. And it starts out in this way where it feels like it's all these short stories. And the first section is called Roots. So it's like the roots coming up. So each story is a root, each person. And then it comes into the trunk. And the trunk is where they come together in the second section. And then the crown where they disperse again. And it was pretty slow at times. But it had so many amazing things to say. Like, they talk about how are we just bystanders to the environment. It talks about, there's just so much stuff that comes up that I'm just like, God, that was powerful. Like, there are moments that, and they're just these, oh my God, there are this couple in it where some stuff happens and it's just heartbreaking. And I cried a lot during this book. I feel like it took a long time. The text is very tiny, but I had a great time with it. Yeah. So can't wait to read more adult fiction, but you know what? I'm going to read more young adult fiction as I go along because I'm having such a good time. Okay. So here comes my only 3-star, the lowest star rating that we have, and that is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Leigh. This takes place in the 1700s, follows Henry Montague and his traveling companion slash best friend slash crush Percy and his sister Felicity as they travel through Europe. He is a lush. He loves the alcohol. He loves the people. I was going to say women, but no, just in general. His parents want to send him away on this like tour of Europe so that he can kind of grow up so he can run the estate. But things happen. He steals a thing and everything goes downhill. They lose their chaperone. Is that spoilers? I don't know. How do you talk about a book without spoiling a little bit? And they go on this like magical quest to try and find this like thing. I don't know what it's called. And he learns. There's lessons. It was kind of rough to get through though. I'd never wanted to pick it up. That was the issue. I was like, it's okay, but it's not great. It wasn't really like pulling me towards it. You know what I mean? I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm on the edge of my seat. It was more like, I guess I'll read this. And then I had to like force myself to finish it. It took me a while. So that's Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. The next book is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is the second book I've read by Elizabeth Acevedo. And the first book that I've read that was in verse, I freaking love this book. Camino and Yahaira are two girls, teenagers, one living in the Dominican Republic, the other in New York. They both lose their father on a flight going from New York to the Dominican Republic, and in the end they come together. It was beautiful. It was heartwarming. It was just the way Elizabeth Acevedo writes things. It's just stunning. It's breathtaking. How do you write like this? I just don't even know. I was just crying. I listened to the audiobook for some of it, and at points it was Elizabeth Acevedo and another reader, and they each spoke for one of the characters because it went back and forth between the two girls. And at the end, it comes together, and there are parts where they're speaking together. And the way that it's done is just so overwhelmingly stunning. Stunning. So if you haven't read this, you should. If I haven't read Poet X, which I haven't, I probably should. Right? Yeah. Last but not least but not last, The 57 Bus by Dashka Slater. Dashka Slater. That is like a twist of the tongue. This is a nonfiction young adult book because we had to read a nonfiction young adult book for my class. And this follows Sasha and Richard. Sasha is non-binary, and they were on a bus one day, and they had a dress on, and they just like gender non-conforming. And Richard was on the bus as well. Richard's a teenager. He's with his friends, and they think it'd be funny to light Sasha's dress on fire while Sasha was sleeping. And they thought, he was like, oh, it's just gonna go out. Well, guess what? Sasha ended up with third-degree burns. So Richard was put into jail and gonna be tried as an adult, which is kind of fucked up because he's only 16. And it's like, he was being tried with a hate crime and all this stuff, and he's like, I didn't mean it like that, you know, like that's not where I was. He was a dumb kid doing a dumb thing. Just the forgiveness that happens, the like understanding from both sides that Dashka Slater comes in and looks at and examines each person's life and each person's story and things working for and against each of them. And the way that Sasha and their family dealt with everything going on was just like, it was touching, the whole story. And the idea of like reformative justice, where people, instead of sending someone to prison, like working it out and like kind of teaching someone that they did wrong. And also the idea of being tried as an adult, when you're a child, and maybe going to jail for 35 years. Eek. It comes into question, like, how do you change people or teach people lessons if they're just going to be in prison for 35 years of their developmental life when their frontal lobe isn't even developed at the point where they did something wrong and they do feel bad about it. They even spoke to Sasha and their family saying, like, I'm sorry. It was a good book. I recommend. I love a good, like, this is kind of like a true crime book, but kind of a transformative learning experience where it talks about like representation and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, I think I gave it a 4. So those are the 7 books that I read in March. Let me know in the comments what books you've read. Let me know if you've read any of these books or have recommendations for me. I always love to hear it. And guess what? I'll see you next time. Subscribe if you want. Yeah! Moonlight Library.